Hello and welcome to this edition of Coffee Break Conservation, where in this session we're going to take a quick look at slate roofing and what to look for. We have already recorded a full hour webinar on roof coverings, and the webinar can be found on the cbcstudies.com website. If you go to the on-demand section, I've ringed it on the top of this image. You'll find access to the full hour discussion on many different types of roof coverings, which includes slate. So here we see an image of a slate train coming down from a slate quarry in North Wales. This is very traditional, although the particular image you see here is largely for tourists. And you see the gentleman on the front part of the train sitting on carriages which are full of slate, which has been cut at the quarry and then is being brought down from the mountain to the bay to be transported away by ship or by train or truck. And this is how it has been done for several hundreds of years. In North Wales, the Lake District, Cornwall particularly, British slate is some of the best in the world, and we need to remember this because there's a lot of imported slates coming into the country which might be geologically slate but are not comparable to British slate in any way. So when we look at a slate roof, these are the sorts of images that we might find. In the top left, we can see how a slate has slipped out, exposing the joint between the slates underneath, and we see there the nail holes where nails have fractured, causing this slate to slip. And then the other images show you different other views that you might commonly see on a slate roof. So when we look at a slate roof, it is very difficult to determine its provenance, and superficially we might just be looking for observations of defects that we can get some form of an opinion on the condition of the roof. So this one particular image, which could equally be your image or any image that you might see on a roof, is actually slightly deceptive because it doesn't show the full picture that we need to know. And here's part of that. This is one of my slates from my collection, and actually this slate is Chinese. It has been left outside to weather for just over 3 years, and the red arrow there is pointing to a curved crack which has appeared on the corner of the slate, and I've shown you a close-up of that, which is barely visible to the naked eye. So this is a Chinese slate, retails approximately 1/3 of the cost of a Welsh slate from Penryn, and hence why it's not surprising at all when homeowners are getting quotes from their roofing contractor and they might choose the cheaper option. But this is a false economy, and experience is showing over the last 15-20 years that imported slates have been used, that Brazilian, Chinese, Spanish, Canadian, these slates might be cheap to purchase, but they're not equivalent, and there are inherent risks that go along with it. So when we look at these slate roofs, we do need to try our very best to find out the provenance of where that slate has come from, and not simply that it might look in reasonable condition. Another defect which we can find is iron pyrites. Here we see a slate which is Spanish and has been considerably affected by iron pyrites. Iron pyrites are an impurity in the slate bed, and when exposed to oxygen, they rust, as you see this slate. So it doesn't come out the ground looking like this, and when it's delivered to site, it would probably be black, like the Chinese slate I've just shown you. But once it oxidizes and starts to discolor, it will very quickly start to deteriorate. And this is something which will only come to light some years after the roof is actually physically in place. So hence, the specifier of that roof needs to be very careful about the provenance of the material. Here's a close-up, and you can see the pitting on the surface of the slate, which is the iron impurities in it. And as I say, this slate would have been black when it was first installed. And actually, iron pyrites don't just affect man-made slates. There are quite a supply of man-made slate effect tiles, and some of these also include iron in the manufacture of the tile underneath that black outer coating. And once the black outer coating starts to weather away, the iron is exposed to the oxygen, which then oxidizes, and we see the characteristic rusty stain. But perhaps the most frequent failure of slate roofs is going to be delamination. As you can see here, the slate geologically is just layers and layers and layers of very, very thin stone compressed under tremendous pressure for hundreds of millions of years. And in some cases, it will delaminate fairly quickly, but actually English and Welsh slate is very robust, and it could easily take 150 or over that years to start to delaminate. And this is what you're going to see. Interestingly, delamination of slate can also occur on the internal face. So if you go up into a roof and you look at the underside of the slate roof, you could also see delamination there, even though it's not exposed to the outside weather. And this is largely due to condensation and that freeze-thaw cycle where water expands when it's frozen and then can blow the face of the slate off. So when you get slate like this, it is likely to be getting worse as each successive winter takes hold, and it's something which probably needs budgeting for. Even though for a short period of time, the slate may still well be waterproof, but it will be having a limited life going forward. So final image, just to show you how big slates can go. This is a queen size slate. This is from North Wales, probably from Penryn Quarry. Very large, as you can see. That one slate weighs probably 30-35 kilos, certainly heavier than a bag of cement. So very, very heavy. So the roof, which has these slates on it, would need to be very, very robust. These queen slates were largely used across the leading edge, so the lower edge of the slate roof, and then the slates would get smaller and smaller as it goes up towards the ridge. And this graduated technique is very common, particularly on very large country houses and historic buildings where these sorts of slates were used. So there we go, a very quick run through, but hopefully an interesting run through on what to look for when looking at slate roofs. So please do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media, and we'll see you again on another day. Thank you.